My name is Eben Kirksey. I'm an associate professor of anthropology at Deakin University. And today I'm going to talk to you about environmental justice in West Papua. But in doing this, I'd like you to each think about how my talk today relates to your own lives. So as I'm starting, I'd like you to each pick up your mobile phone and think about how your phone connects you to this place in West Papua, in the highlands. So right here, this is a picture of the Freeport McMoran gold mine. This is the largest gold mine in the world. There's also massive copper deposits. And as you see here, this hole is visible from outer space. It's huge. Going downstream, looking at the waste from the mine, you see this cut through the lowland rainforest. You see this massive swath of dead trees and swamp. This used to be where the Amangme people would hunt and gather and fish. But now basically you see this landscape that's dead. It's polluted. It's killed in a way that we wouldn't allow here in Australia or in other countries like the US, where there's environmental regulations. Your mobile phone has gold wires in it. These wires let you connect with the world. It lets your phone process data. But these gold wires come from West Papua or another gold mine in another part of the world. I want you to really think about how we all live in positions of non-innocence. Basically, that means that our own lives are made possible by systems of resource extraction in these seemingly far-off parts of the world. And thinking about other ways that you're connected to the environmental injustice that's taking place in West Papua, I want to show you some pictures of an artwork. This is a piece by Etienne Turpin and Sophie-Anne Springer. It's a piece that I exhibited in an art gallery in New York City. And basically what they did was collect all sorts of things that have palm oil in them. So if you look closely at these jars, and these are like taxonomic specimen jars, it's much like what you would use to collect an insect or a small mushroom from a forest in West Papua. So in here you see everything from Cheerios to toothpaste to shaving gel, to biscuits, to all sorts of things like margarine, soy sauce. Quite likely, just about everybody in this room today has consumed a product with palm oil in it today. As many of you know, the oil palm plantations of West Papua are producing deforestation on a massive scale. Today I asked Louise to show you some pictures of drone footage that one of my PhD students, Sophie Chow, took while she was working near Merauke. Merauke is a city on the south coast of West Papua, not too far from the Freeport mine. And basically massive swaths of rainforest have been clear-cut to make room for these palm oil plantations. And indigenous people have been kicked off their land. You can see some of the deforestation in this picture here. So some of it is from earlier moments when the World Bank resettled massive numbers of peasants from Java in this transmigration scheme from the 1980s. But other parts of this land were clear-cut quite recently to make room for these palm oil plantations. What you have is indigenous communities living alongside these extractive industries of capital. And these extractive industries of capital are in part what make our lives possible today. So we really need to think about environmental justice in the context of West Papua, not as an abstract problem related to people elsewhere, living in another place, another time, that are unconnected from our own lives, but to think about how our own patterns of consumption how we move through the world is enabled by these ongoing processes of deforestation. So the question becomes, what can I do? What sort of practices can I develop to be more responsible? So West Papua has vast tracts of old growth rainforest. Outside of the Amazon, the environment here is one of the most interesting and biodiverse regions of the world. As you see, there's hardly any roads in West Papua. So one thing that we need to think about, given our connections to this place, is how we might change the flow of these products, and how we might learn more and be curious about the ongoing injustice that is taking place, the injustice that sustains our lifestyles. So one of the key concepts from the environmental justice movement comes from Rob Nixon. He has a book titled Slow Violence, and he actually mentions the Freeport mine as an example to illustrate this concept. So he contrasts the slow violence that you see with ongoing dispossessions, that is, when indigenous peoples lose their land in response to capitalist projects. He contrasts that with the very acute violence that you see in terms of human rights abuses. So slow violence is a lot less difficult to track and understand than the acute human rights abuses that show up in daily news reports. The usual line in journalism is, if it bleeds, it leads. So in stories of slow violence, what we see are much more subtle processes at work. You see land claims. The process that led to Freeport claiming this mountain and making a windfall in terms of profits is a story of dispossession. So many of you may know that this gold was discovered in the 1960s. It was discovered before really Indonesian sovereignty was at all a clear or assured future for this place. The discovery was made in the later days of Dutch colonialism, and then Freeport entered the picture in 1967 when they signed a contract of work with Indonesia. 1969 is when the official transfer happened, a deal that in many ways was sealed by Henry Kissinger, who later went on to have a seat on the Freeport board of directors. Henry Kissinger, as many of you know, is a former US Department of State head. He's the person who headed up US foreign policy. So I think, there's very clear imperial dimensions to environmental injustice in this particular instance. Clearly some people in this world are profiting from this wealth while others live nearby. The indigenous Amangme people who live in the shadows of this mine, many of them don't have access to modern medicine. Many of them have among the lowest rates of, some of the highest rates of infant mortality and maternal mortality in the world. Issues like malnutrition are now chronic. Indigenous lands that were once used for hunting and for gathering are now occupied by Freeport security forces. Down in the lowlands near the town of Tamika, indigenous peoples have been marginalized. Many of the economic opportunities associated with the mine have gone to outsiders, and those among me who are able to get wage earning jobs from the mine are relegated to positions that are relatively marginal. Some of the higher risk positions underground, as well as the low paid menial jobs, the work of cleaning up after people in corporate offices is a job that some among the women get. So part of what environmental justice is all about in this context is thinking about this question of who benefits. And if you want to sound fancy in Latin, you would say cui bono. So in this zone where people separated by geography, people separated by history, have come together around an extractive industry. There are certain people who are reaping benefits while others are being marginalized. So obviously you have white expatriates from the US, but also from Australia who work at the mine in executive positions, take home lucrative salaries. You also have investors from all over the world, people who have super funds may unwittingly also be invested in this place. So you know, I think making these inequalities visible is what environmental justice is all about. So some of the key questions here are, how might we continue to support indigenous lifeways in the shadows of this mining project, in the shadows of the palm oil plantations that are giving us some of the basic everyday products that we use in our lives? I really think that the Australian foreign policy has a role to play here. DFAT has a lot of investments in the area, and it behooves us to contact our elected officials and ask for more information. You know, how responsibly are businesses that are connected to Australia, how responsibly are they acting in West Papua? What might we do to change the business practices? How might we develop some effective campaigns that do some strategic targeting, whether it's Freeport, which has been targeted by many activist campaigns over the years, or maybe it's a more difficult organization to target. Maybe it's a company involved in some of these oil palm plantations, or maybe it's the timber industry. A lot of the timber that we're getting in Australia comes from plantations in West Papua. So there's currently a project in this region known as Wasior, where timber is being extracted and directly sold here in Australia. I look forward to discussing possible campaign ideas when I return back to Australia. I'll be back in the country as of May 1st. I'm apologizing for not being able to join you in person today, but if there's any questions, please let me know. Thank you.